Dorfromantik is a phenomenal solo board game experience. It's a tile placement strategy game where you simply just build up a village landscape with forests, housing, railways, streams, and so on. Match the different edge types together to score bonus points and complete quests. This might be the most relaxing, chill, and cozy game I've ever played, and it's perfect for that before-bed relaxation game time on my Steam Deck. There's zero pressure, zero stress, zero chaos. Just keep placing tiles however you want, aiming to get high scores, or don't. Build whatever feels good, man. There's even a dedicated Zen mode for creative play. This feels like a cute fantasy version of my good memories of SimCity and City Skylines without the natural disasters or economy management. If you want a game to zone out to or listen to podcasts or watch shows while you play, this is it. There's also a physical board game now as well. Clank is basically what happens when you take a loot-based dungeon crawler and abstract it out to a flat board game style plane. And it's a lot of fun. You are a thief sneaking into the castle dungeon to steal epic loot. But you're not alone. Up to 3 other thieves are also delving alongside you and hoping to score the most loot. But you only get to win if you make it back alive. Return above ground to guarantee some loot, even if you're knocked out, or escape the castle completely for major bonus points. Along the way, you'll encounter monsters and enemies to fight with battle points, and the whole time you're trying to avoid making sounds or clanking and attracting the attention of the dragon, who will absolutely wreck you. One false step could be the end. This is a deck building game where your actions are determined by a hand of cards you draw each round. You use your cards up to build up points, card draws, movement, battle points, and so on that determine what actions you can take in the round. Card draws allow you to pick up new cards to be shuffled into your deck eventually. They go into the graveyard first, which then when you've run out of cards, that graveyard is shuffled into your new, more powerful deck. You get more valuable treasure the deeper you go, but you're also limited on how much of each kind of treasure you can carry with you. This is a game of strategy, resource management, and trying to outplay your opponents, but not necessarily directly competing. The RNG here isn't always kind, but it does always feel fair. There is an immense sense of risk-reward here, and I had a ton of fun. Clank can be played with up to 4 players, either solo versus AI, or locally via the pass and play method, plus online multiplayer, including cross-platform support with the mobile version. Playing solo goes a bit quicker than playing with others, only taking about 15 to 20 minutes to complete a delve versus the 45-ish minutes expected runtime of a multiplayer level. Solo play gets you a neat challenge mode, too. Everdell is another cute, cozy game, but does require a bit more strategy to get good at. It's a bit of a resource management, city building kind of game, kinda. This one was originally a proper board game and is highly regarded in its translation to digital. Combine worker placement for resource gathering with strategic card plays to score points and prepare for each season. Seasons act as rounds of sorts across multiple turns, and different actions happen during the different seasons, making for a unique spin on this kind of play. Broadly speaking, your turns consist of placing workers to gather resources such as berries, twigs, resin, pebbles, and cards. Different resources have different difficulties for gathering. Next, playing cards, either construction or critter cards to generate resources, activate abilities, or help you score points faster. And finally, preparing for the season change, which brings your workers home and helps you plan your next steps. The game is over after 4 seasons have gone. You're playing against up to 3 other critters competing for resource gathering spots, building the most buildings, and scoring the most victory points. Some resource spots are shared, some are single use, and you can sometimes visit your opponent's buildings to get resources at the cost of giving them victory points to do so. Lots of strategy is involved with the decision making, but the actual mechanical play is as simple as it gets. Just click to play or drag to play, that's it. It won't let you do something you can't do, so it's hard to mess up. The art style and music are beautiful and quite charming, and it's a solid experience on the Steam Deck, though on the PC, the tutorial was locked to 30 FPS for some reason. Thankfully, the game does run at 60 outside of the tutorial. I did have some other quirks with like the detection for my card plays being hit or miss with the mouse, but it wasn't a big deal. Everdell can be played with up to 4 other players, either online with cross-platform Switch and mobile compatibility, which is neat, locally with pass and play turn-taking, or solo. This is another great solo play board game experience where the core game loop is still fun and relaxing when you play solo, plus there's a solo challenge section you could work on too. Demeo is an interesting dungeon crawler game, and there's 3 to talk about there. First, normal Demeo. This game can be played in both VR and as a standard 2D screen game, including cross-platform between the modes. The vibe recreates a virtual 90s basement with snacks and good vibes to really feel like you're sitting around the table with buds. Demeo is a cooperative experience, not a competitive one. Whether you play solo or with friends, you have a party of up to 4 heroes, with the game really suggesting you have a minimum of 3 in your party, but you don't have to, as you delve dungeons for loot and try to make it out alive. I feel like this is just a straight-up hardcore gamified version of old Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. They even have the campaign levels designed to look like AD&D books. Your party heroes represent different fantasy classes, like a wizard, a warlock, a warrior, and so on. They each have their own movement ranges and abilities. And of course, the abilities and items are represented by cards, because everything has to have a deck building aspect to it now. You get 2 turns worth of movement. You can engage in combat and you can collect loot and open doors. The game progresses through 3 levels. The first 2 have you finding a key and unlocking the gate to the next level, collecting any loot along the way, and defeating enemies in order to make the gate safe to travel through, and the final level is a big boss fight. But be warned, this game is not easy at all. In fact, one of my biggest complaints is that if you aren't speedrunning through the key levels, you're just flat out overwhelmed by the seemingly endless spawning enemies that make the game feel more like a battle of attrition rather than a neat dungeon exploration experience. If you've got that one friend who is obsessed with D&D combat tactics and optimization, this is for them. The game is kind of like a blend of old school Gauntlet and an XCOM tactics game. They're perfect for solo play or joining with a bud. Thankfully, there's save slots as the full campaign tends to run about 2 hours and you don't want to be stuck deciding between finishing and eating or sleeping in real life. My only big complaint is having played in the 2D normal screen mode, the camera is a bit wonky to control and the dice that you roll for attacking and things like that often just kind of disappear off screen, which kind of has ruined the entire point of rolling the dice by hand for me. It's kind of a weird thing. The second game in the bundle is Demeo X Dungeons & Dragons Battle Marked. This is effectively the same kind of game, just with actual D&D branding and elements. It's described as just D&D without the DM, but it's still very, very combat focused, which at least my own personal D&D sessions aren't entirely focused on in my groups. We have lots of combat, but it's not just a battle simulator. That's not how I play D&D. You don't have much room for world building or role playing in Demeo. Again, the game is a lot of fun and a great solo experience. Everything I said before still applies, and you arguably have more familiarity with the official D&D integration. But this further shines light on the game's shortcomings and what I have seen some describe as hollowness. The difficulty is a tad unnecessary and exhausting after a while not really being matched in reward at the end. Plus, the sheer quantity of enemies make it feel like you never have room to actually spend time in the dungeons and get anything out of them. There's very little to the story or character development, only the bare minimum is present to move the dungeons along, and there's no custom character creation or anything that might extend the longevity of the game significantly. All that being said, it's still a fun time for fantasy combat nerds, and I am enjoying my time with it. The last game in the Demeo bundle is Demeo Battles. This is a pure PvP experience, 1v1 or 2v2 battling with the tactics gameplay of the core game. This would be neat if you have friends you really enjoy playing Demeo with already and someone gets spicy at the table and you want to take it outside or something. But don't buy this one on its own expecting to play solo. There is 0 player base and you will not find a match solo queuing. For that reason alone, buying Demeo Battles standalone doesn't make any sense, but I guess it's fine if you grabbed the bundle. If you were just picking one, get Battle Marked, IMO. Yellow and Yangtze is the oldest game on my list, but it's still a good one. This presents as your typical ancient civilization settlers game, but with a twist. It's also a spiritual successor to the Tigris and Euphrates game. In Yellow and Yangtze, you don't own the land, but instead you own the leaders in charge of doing things on the land, and you score points when tiles are placed in the land that you have leaders on, matching what your leaders are. This tile-placing war game has you strategizing leader placement, stacking warriors, traders, farmers, artisans, and governors, and disrupting your opponents via revolts, peasant revolts, and outright war. It's a tug-of-war game of balance that has a lot of little mechanics to remember, but doesn't feel super stressful to play. Another fun twist is that you're not really chasing the most points to win. Rather, you are scored based on your lowest score, based on the number of unit types placed near leaders. It doesn't matter if your opponent has a bunch of one type of unit. If you can demolish their count in another category, you can still win. Yellow Yangtze supports local and online play up to 4 players, or you can play solo. You don't really miss out on anything with solo play. Since it's such a thinking and math heavy game, I'd imagine table chatter would be pretty low with friends with this game anyway. There's also a campaign mode for solo play with puzzle challenges to take on. Root is an asymmetrical woodland warfare game, a game wherein different factions are trying to score the most victory points on the board. But every faction plays quite differently. Some factions are aiming to spread and take over different landings in the forest, almost like a turn-based Warcraft. Cats build engines, birds program moves differently, mice usually trade more, but then you have characters like the Vanguard, who are just playing their own fantasy RPG, doing quests and taking out members of any faction, making trades and sneaking across routes. Root has a downright adorable art style, and the music is great. It creates that cozy vibe like you'd feel with Everdell, but there's just so many mechanics to consider and remember each turn, especially with every faction being different. You can grasp the basics fast, but to actually score the most victory points requires a lot of decision juggling. Sometimes my entire turn would end after only one of my actions, and I was not always clear as to why. I'm still learning. But I will say, with this being a traditional board game first, I'm glad I'm playing it in video game form. This is the exact kind of experience I'd really struggle to keep up with without the visual aids of the digital version. Each match does require a fair bit of investment time, and this one is far more chaotic than Everdell. Root has wonderful, thorough tutorials for all of the factions, and there's a really neat adjustable 2D and 3D switcher so you can play however you want. The game can be played with up to 4 total players online, locally with pass and play, or solo. It's an excellent solo game, giving you the capacity to focus, but also having a solo challenge mode to take on as well. Set a Watch actually just released on the first day of Board Game Fest, which is neat, although it seems they shipped the demo instead of the retail release for the first day. Whoops! This is a neat single-player dice-based battle sim. You start with an adventuring party that's mid-adventure and have to juggle who goes with you into battle and who stays behind to tend to the campsite and heal. Dice rolls are used for resource management both in camp and in battle, and you have abilities to juggle and exhaust as you go. Enemies are presented in card form, shuffled and manipulated with abilities. Dice scores are used as damage count, and enemy abilities can do everything from changing turn order to stealing your dice to taking away your camp resources while you're in battle. This is a solo game for someone who really likes resource management and the thrill of battle strategy, but there's minimal reward as you play, at least in my short experience so far. The game is new, I'm still working my way through it. Last in my normal list is Spirit Island, a blend of cooperative settler destruction strategy game. This is set in an alternate history 1700 CE time period, but that doesn't entirely matter. You are in charge of Spirit Island, an island inhabited by elemental spirits who want to protect its native citizens. Defend the island from colonizing invaders who want to explore, build on the land, and spread blight and destruction. The invaders feel like an impossible challenge, but each turn you get to grow your spirit's presence and use your special abilities to move or destroy invaders. Each turn, the invaders get to progress between an area they explore, an area they build in, and an area they ravage. Remove invaders from an area and they can't do anything for that turn that's assigned to the area. Juggle the explorers enough and build up fear points to scare them away and clear your island. There are 8 different spirits, and you can control 1 to 4 of them and combine their powers. There's supposedly 78,000 different game configurations you can experience between the spirits and the island layouts. The more spirits in play, the bigger your island is. This is a gold standard solo game experience, but it can be played with up to 3 extra friends either online or locally. The decision space is too big for one player to manage, so you won't deal with much quarterbacking of playmates telling each other what to do. Spirit Island has a great tutorial and walks you through just about everything you need to do, and despite the sheer quantity of steps required here and mechanics at play, I did not feel myself being overwhelmed trying to keep up with all of them compared to Root or other strategy games. It all has a kind of intuitive flow to it once you're familiar. But despite all of that, the game moves at a snail's pace, and I really found myself getting bored at times. I do plan on sticking with it more, as I find the concept really appealing, and it's clearly made with a high level of polish. I was disappointed to see that Garfield Lasagna Party and Worlds of Aria were not on sale for Board Game Fest. This is a bummer, as Worlds of Aria seems like an incredible D&D experience narrated by the wonderful Laura Bailey, and I think more people should be playing this game. It's still an affordable option though, at just $15 for the base game, and it has Friend Pass, meaning only one person in your group needs to own it for everyone to play. Reminds me of the good old DS download play times. Garfield Lasagna Party is much more expensive at $30 for the entry, and it's just an odd one. It's Mario Party, but Garfield. I don't feel like Garfield is big enough of a franchise to warrant so many solo games versus being crossovers in other games, and if someone wants a Mario Party-like experience on PC, this might be a good choice, but $30 is quite a gamble. That's it for my picks for Steam Board Game Fest this year. I had a lot of fun trying out games I don't normally play on PC. I tend to play my board games on an actual tabletop, but I found quite a few that I plan on playing regularly. Sound off with your favorite board game sales in the comments or on the forums at demodisc.zone. And remember to be kind, rewind.